Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
Let the dogs out. You know, like, ooh, let the dogs out. Ooh, ooh.
Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Hope you had a fantastic break. I know I certainly did. I'm not so sure about my facial hair. Welcome to the program, and we've got a huge show on tap. Ron Slay will join us as he does each and every Wednesday. Also, we'll take a look at Tennessee recruiting with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, and I don't know, Caleb, what do you think? During the Christmas break, I thought I'd go with the beard here, but the problem is there's actually hair there, but it's so white you can't even see it. So I'm thinking about chucking that before we get to coverage of the Vols in the Orange Bowl. Your thoughts?
I mean, you got to do what's best for you. I did shave the day before Christmas. It was the stupidest day I ever picked to shave because we got hit with a giant cold front. And then I walk outside and I feel like I got punched in the face. But the beautiful thing about a beard is, you know, it's a natural anti-aging cream. If you keep a beard on, it keeps your skin at that part of your face from aging. But obviously, the beard's going to age with you. So if you keep the beard on, like, the white's going to start to show up as you get older. And so it's a gift and a curse.
Mine's 80% white at this point. Good morning, David. We appreciate you being on, and certainly looking forward to some Tennessee football recruiting coverage before the end of the program. Like I mentioned, Ron Slay. And then, you know, we're 2 days away from the Orange Bowl. You kind of get in this game week sometimes where you think that it's a Saturday game, and bowl weeks can be so strange. But, you know, Tennessee is there. They went down on Christmas night. So, you know, practicing on the bowl side, I still think it's as much a bowl about getting better as a whole as it is about winning this game. Of course, a win versus Clemson would be fantastic. But, you know, when you look at this game, I'm not sure what the latest line you've seen is, Caleb, but I'm leaning towards, I think, Tennessee in the motivation factor, which is so huge in bowls, so absolutely huge. I think Tennessee has a slight advantage there because of one guy, and I think that's Joe Milton. Now, he may come out and be inaccurate and throw 4 interceptions. I don't know. You and I both have questions about him, but I think this team wants him to do well, so they will play to a higher level for him. At least that's my reasoning at this point. On the other side of it, I look at Clemson. They thought they'd be in a national title sort of scenario in a college football playoff, and they're not. So I always look at bowl games, and I judge motivation as much as anything. So I think Tennessee has a slight advantage on that. Caleb, your thoughts?
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's kind of almost the exact opposite of when Tennessee and Clemson last played in a bowl game. Tennessee was in the Peach Bowl, and I think everybody knew Tennessee was losing that game because they had no desire to be in that game at all. They thought they were going to BCS Bowl, then they got robbed out of the Outback Bowl. No, it's a little different this time. And, you know, you were the one who got me hooked, who got me hip to the idea that bowl games like these are so much more about who wants it more. And you never really, you know, I feel like that phrase is oftentimes overused. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when two teams, it's the most annoying in the NBA when two teams are playing in the finals and one wins and they're like, well, this team just wanted it more. I'm like, they're both playing for the title. They both wanted it.
Right.
But yeah. But like a bowl game that's a consolation, I feel like that is where it comes into play a heck of a lot more.
I guarantee you that Karl Malone wanted to win that last championship that when they were in the NBA Finals against Jordan. He wanted to win that every bit as much as Jordan. I guarantee you. John Stockton wanted it as much as Scottie Pippen. But bowl games are a different animal. I mean, they're almost like an exhibition. You don't know who wants to be there. Now, let me play the flip side. Let me play devil's advocate to myself. You don't have Jalen Hyatt. You don't have Cedric Tillman, which I question is even that much of a loss. If you look at when Cedric Tillman played, Tennessee wasn't fantastic. I don't know if that was a bad fit or what the case may have been. But when Cedric Tillman played, they didn't play well offensively. They did when Jalen Hyatt played well. You have the Jeremy Banks issue. Kudos to let's go through some of the opt-outs and let me get your thoughts on those. And because we haven't had a chance to talk about those, and then we're going to tell you who's going to be the breakout player in the Orange Bowl. So Caleb, let's go ahead and start with Jalen Hyatt. What did you think of his decision to opt out of this bowl game? I hear talk from some people that he's going to be a first-round pick. I'm just going to go on record right now, Caleb, that he's not going to be a first-round pick. He is an incredibly fast receiver, but when it comes to the all-around package, Cedric Tillman is a better NFL prospect, in my opinion. I've been wrong before, but I don't see Jalen Hyatt being a first-round pick. Therefore, I can kind of understand him making sure he takes care of his personal business. Although with the NIL money, he still should have played, in my opinion. But let's break it down, Caleb. First, let's start with Jalen Hyatt. Should he have played? Were you disappointed he didn't play?
I don't blame him for not playing at all. More than anything, I think that Tennessee has proven that at receiver, they kind of have a pretty solid next man up mentality. You're right. Jalen Hyatt only emerged because Cedric Tillman got hurt. Let's not forget the Pitt game this year. Before Tillman got hurt, Tillman was still the star. And he really was the one that carried Tennessee to victory over Pitt earlier this year. And then he gets hurt at Akron. And then it takes Jalen Hyatt about 2 games before he really just breaks out and starts doing what he was doing, the whole season. I think one of the things that helped Jalen Hyatt was, we've talked about this, we've got Heupel's scheme. And then you've got, look, Hendon Hooker has got a pretty deep ball, if we're going to be honest. And that's something that benefits him a lot. And so I think that I agree. I'm not so sure he is a first-round draft pick. I think he's a talented guy. I think he's very fast. I see him, funny enough, being similar to the guy he replaced this past year, which is I see him being similar to Velus Jones Jr. in the NFL. And Velus is struggling a little bit to develop. So that's kind of where I am with it. Guys, I'm sorry. I think we are having technical difficulties here. I think there is a give me 1 second. Don't know on my end or the other. So just give us 1 second.
Oh, there we got you back.
There. Oh, was that me or was that you that we lost?
Unbelievable funsies. I'm back and I'm in the wrong spot. So you were saying about Jalen Hyatt. I don't know what happened to my internet. It just said it went down for a second. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was saying that I think Jalen Hyatt. I think his profile is actually very similar to Velus Jones Jr. of last year. I think the only reason Hyatt put up way bigger numbers than Jones was because Tillman was hurt when Hyatt was playing. I think if Cedric Tillman played the whole season fully healthy, Jalen Hyatt's numbers would have mirrored what Velus Jones did last year. Velus Jones is an NFL player. He's with the Bears. Had a bit of a rocky rookie season, but you see some promise there. Velus Jones was not a first-round draft pick. And so I think to me personally, if I'm Josh Heupel, I'm excited about the prospect of now getting to work more with Squirrel White, who I think actually may long-term does have unique talent and potential as a receiver, as a slot guy.
Great point. They get longer to work with him as well, which should be interesting. All right, so the rest of the guys, I don't blame Jalen Hyatt for playing. There's always going to be a part of me maybe because I'm getting up there in age that's nostalgic and says, well, he should play. Tennessee's fan base did a lot for him, but I understand it's a business. Be sure and hit that like button, not the like my internet connection button, but the like the show button, the thumbs up. We greatly appreciate that to become a part of your morning, and we open it up to more listeners. Let's get your comments back up on the message board as I lost that in my little internet connection blip. So, I mean, I think he should play. I understand the reason not to play. I have no problem with Cedric Tillman not playing. I think he tried to rush back for the Alabama game as best he could. But that didn't work out, and I don't think he was really ever effective. So it's time to get ready for the NFL draft. Those high ankle sprains can be a bear, not just for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but the rest of your career. So I don't have a problem with him laying out whatsoever. Your thoughts?
Sorry, I have no problem with Cedric Tillman laying out. I think that you're right. He's been dealing with an ankle injury. He hasn't been able to be as effective as he wants to be. And honestly, again, I think Cedric Tillman is, like we talked about, a little more uniquely valuable than Jalen Hyatt. But if he's not coming back, more reps for Brew McCoy and Ramel Keaton. And it's time to work with both of them. And I'm really, really happy for specifically Ramel Keaton. We all know Brew McCoy's potential, but I think it's underrated how many times Ramel Keaton has come through in key moments for Tennessee this past year as a wideout. And, I think that him deciding to stay at Tennessee, even after losing the starting wideout job to Cedric Tillman a couple of years ago, speaks highly of him. I think Ramel Keaton is kind of a lesson in just kind of sticking it out a lot of times with systems. And so I think that this is actually really good for the coaches to get the reps. I mean, if we don't know if Joe Milton's going to be your guy, I know you think Nico's going to be starting by game 3 of next year, but I will say if he is your guy, there's still the chance he's in the race. He's got a whole extra month to work with Brew and Ramel, since both of them are going to be back next year.
I like Ramel Keaton a lot. I think he is what he is. I think he's a good B+ player type of guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar. Is that pretty much common ground? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I think the lesson is if you're a B+ player, though, who's not going to be a superstar, and you're not happy about getting your playing time or reps early, don't risk losing your scholarship by entering the transfer portal, trying to go somewhere to play immediately. I think that's kind of a mistake that a lot of players are making in the transfer portal right now.
No, I agree completely. And I've heard it both ways talking to some of these coaches that I talk to, how some players will show up at a campus like Tennessee and see, you've got filet, you've got fish, you've got pasta, you got everything you want. And you got whirlpools and you got facilities and you got all this stuff. You don't have to wait in line to ever do a bench press in your life. And I've heard guys go the other way that have transferred to name programs that don't have what the upper echelon, let's say the top 15 or 20 programs have, like Tennessee. And they're kind of like, whoa, that might have been a mistake to change. Joe says he agrees with you about Jalen Hyatt. Joe also says, I'm not sure what you mean. Eli's could have done what Hyatt did in the same situation personally. Here are my thoughts on Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. I'll look at Cedric Tillman, and I think that's a guy that I would draft. Now, do I have questions about his ankle? Sure. Do I have questions about a little bit old-fashioned questions about not wanting to play in the bowl game? Sure. That's just me because I'm old. But as a whole, I look at him and I see a more complete receiver than Jalen Hyatt. With Hyatt, I see a fast guy, and I see an offense that figured out how to read the safety. In particular, Hendon Hooker figured out how to read the safety, and that was a natural from the slot position. That position opened itself up a lot, every bit as much as Jalen Hyatt did. I don't mean that as a knock on Jalen Hyatt, Caleb, but I kind of see that as he was a great player in a great situation. I think Cedric Tillman is a great talent as a whole at wide receiver. You might disagree a bit on that.
No, I fully agree with you on that. And I think Cedric Tillman, it's funny when you were off, Amanda and I were talking about this, but we were talking about, I know you brought in the opting out, but if you want to bring in intangibles too, when you're comparing them, Cedric Tillman, here's a 2-star receiver in 2018 who worked his way into the number 1 wideout spot. stayed with Tennessee, flying under the radar for 2.5 years. The coaching change happens. All signs pointed to him never, ever playing, and he decided to stay and give it a shot with Heupel and became the number 1 receiver. Jalen Hyatt has openly admitted that he wasn't that focused in 2021. And look, I'm not trying to criticize him. He clearly righted the ship this year, but when you talk intangibles, there is a red flag a lot of times when a player is capable of turning it off like that, because some of the best that I think of never really turned it off. They were always driven and dedicated. And so, okay, I'm dedicated this year, but I'm not going to be dedicated next year. That's a bit of a red flag for
like a contract year in the NFL, perhaps.
Exactly. What if it's, and I mean, I just think that it reminds me, I think I've told you this before. Remember when Tyler Bray, after the 2011 season and Tennessee went 5-7, and he admitted, I was kind of dumb last year. I didn't really focus or do anything hard, focus that hard. And I'm like, yeah, 2012, actually, he played well. The defense was bad, but nobody in the NFL drafted him at that point. Even though he had by far the best measurables of any quarterback in that draft, no one came close to wanting him because his intangibles were so bad.
Isn't that incredibly hard to fathom, that you would work that hard to get to that point, and then you only have a finite number of years to play as a football player, be it 3 or 4 in college and probably on average 3 or 4 in the NFL, and you say, this is a year I'm going to take off? That doesn't make much sense. Zool Beer Company makes a lot of sense. Worldwide award-winning craft beer, and it's in downtown Knoxville. They have parking, and you can go to xulbeer.com, zoolbeer.com. It is fantastic, the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports. So some other guys that are opting out. I actually, listening to some other people and talking to some people, I think Jeremy Banks has more of an effect than a lot of people might think, just because I think they're thin there. I think they're thin on the second level of that defense. I think that you need all the legs you can get with the way they run plays on offense. And I think he was very good. I don't know if the defense quit or not at South Carolina, but I think he was very good at understanding defensive fronts. And I think that's a more significant loss than I hear from other people. You?
1,000% agree. I think on the long term, many Tennessee fans will say good riddance to Jeremy Banks because of how the season ended. But and Josh Heupel did a good job this offseason, through recruiting and getting BYU transfer Keenan Peely in the transfer portal to make sure he can kind of offset the impending loss of Jeremy Banks next year. That's irrelevant for the Orange Bowl, though. I mean, that doesn't really matter. So I think that Jeremy Banks is huge. I think the only way Tennessee's defense can offset the loss of a guy like Jeremy Banks, and you talked about this against South Carolina, is if the defensive line has one of those, as you said, hair on fire moments where they are just playing with relentless, playing relentlessly. And they didn't do that against South Carolina. It was one of those weird days where it's like, night game, probably, defensive line is, we talk about winning it more. That's a position where you have to really want it all the time to play well, because it's really just winning matchups up front. And so if the defensive line wants to, and by the way, I don't know if you noticed yesterday, Josh Heupel trotted out all the defensive linemen to speak with the media. And
I did notice that.
Yeah. And so I think that I think that's really the big deal, is they got to play. I mean, Byron Young and Tyler Barron have to go all out. How all out is Byron Young going to go? I know he's chosen to play, but he's going to the NFL draft. Does he really want to risk injury? But maybe at the same time, look, Byron Young may want to improve his draft stock. And if you're playing a bowl game to improve your draft stock as a defensive end, luckily for football's the ultimate team sport, but defensive end is a position where you can really just focus on help on yourself, and you're not really kind of leaving anybody out to dry, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just think you got to be careful in that situation. I don't believe you can play football protecting yourself. I think that's a great way to get hurt. So I would be very careful with that. And I don't have any reason to believe that's his mindset going in. But if that were the case, I'd be incredibly careful with that. So what opt-outs are we missing on Tennessee side? I think we've got pretty much got them all
I think
covered.
those were the only three.
Yeah.
Hyatt, Tillman, and Banks.
And then the Byron Young is going to play. So an opt.
Same with Darnell Wright.
Darnell Wright will play. I think that's a big deal. I think that Darnell Wright is. I was looking at and listen, everybody puts these lists out, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that some of them are just absolutely insane. Danny says, wish Banks best of luck. I think that's kind of a way of saying go ahead and go. But I will go ahead and tell you a lot of these lists that you're seeing come out with Tennessee prospects rated in the NFL draft are just people saying fun stuff. They're picking the Biletnikoff Award. They're picking the guy who caught 5,000 yards, and that's good. And I think we talked about how Cedric Tillman is probably a better prospect at receiver between the two. But I look at these group of guys. I'm going to start with you, Caleb. Who's the safest, best pick out of these Tennessee Vols if you're an NFL team and you're floating there and that guy's there? Who do you like the most out of this group of Vols that are going on to the NFL this year?
That's the easiest question you ever asked me, Darnell Wright.
I agree.
I'm not even thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a natural right tackle that can flip the left tackle when he needs to. If you ever have an injury at that position, I think he could slide into guard. Although I don't think he would ever be asked to do that unless it was an emergency situation. Yeah, I think that's super easy. Who's second on your list?
If we were to go second, I would have said Byron Young at the start of the year, but I don't know. Byron Young kind of was a bit of a letdown this year as an edge rusher, and I don't want to pile on him too hard, but you just didn't see the emergence with him. If I were going to go second, I think an underrated one, and he doesn't, the PFF grades and analytics wouldn't like this, but I think an underrated one is Trayvon Flowers. And I think I might go with him. And the reason I say that is, yes, the secondary was awful this year. I think we forget how much Trayvon was covering for so many deficiencies across the back end. And it reminds me of, you ever see you see this in the past sometimes. You see sometimes safeties don't have the type of year they wanted to have because they're so often trying to cover for so many deficiencies at cornerback.
Reminds me of Rashad Baker.
Yes, his senior year, he didn't get any interceptions until the end because he was trying to cover for so many issues at corner.
Yeah, he started out at receiver, and I remember Philip Fulmer saying he might be the most natural receiver that he'd ever seen. And then 2 days later, he moved to corner, and then the next year he moved to safety, and he was kind of in charge of covering up the back end of that defense. I don't even think he played corner the whole year his freshman year. I remember the LSU tackle that he wasn't able to make that was against LeBrandon Tofield, but. Baker to me is similar. He had a long NFL career, 8
Did he?
years.
No, are you sure you're not thinking of Jabril Wilson?
No, Rashad Baker played longer than you would think. I would bet.
Really?
I'll let you look that up while I tell people about the importance of Vols.
Oh, you're right. He did play in the NFL for 8 years. Good
yeah,
call.
he floated around. He started with the Bills. Vols Automotive Group is car shopping made easy. Vols Automotive Group is right there. They want, they need, and they appreciate your business. And if you want to talk auto financing, they can do that. And with the service department, you're going to get exactly what you need at Vols Automotive Group. So I ask you guys, okay, this is kind of where I wanted to get to. Green Wave said, why not Hendon? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think Hendon is going to be an elite NFL prospect. I think Hendon is incredibly smart, and I think he'll hang around kind of like a Josh Dobbs for a long time. But when I think of Hendon Hooker, I think of a guy who was the perfect quarterback in the perfect system. I think that there are going to be some limitations with his ability to complete balls over the middle consistently. I don't like his accuracy over the middle, and he's going to be asked to do that in the NFL. I've heard some talk that Hendon Hooker could be a first-round pick heard other people that I trust a lot more say 3rd round pick. I think he's a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think quarterback boosts you a little bit. So that's probably worth a round right there. Otherwise, I'd be talking about 4th or 5th round. I'm not knocking Hendon Hooker in any shape, form, or fashion, Caleb. I just don't view him as an NFL franchise quarterback. I don't see him as that.
So Hendon at this stage, the way he is right now, I'm with you. I don't see him as an NFL franchise quarterback. I do believe there's things quarterbacks can get better at. I don't think Hendon is a guy that can start right away. No matter what team drafts him, you're going to need like probably 2 or 3 years. But and I would have been with you.
And you're going to have the ACL, which
Yeah, and you're going to have the ACL issue. The way coaches have incorporated analytics and the right schemes into their systems now, I think you can find a spot for Hooker. Look, if you can find a spot for Lamar Jackson, who is not accurate on deep balls or over the middle and won an MVP, I think you can find a spot for Hendon Hooker. He's got to be in the right situation and he's got to develop. I don't think he's going to be able to start his 1st or 2nd year in the league. I do think, and yeah, I'm seeing a Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett, things like that.
Tyrod Taylor comparison from Joe, by the way.
I do too. And then, I mean, look, I this is an intangible factor on top of that. There's the skills of Hendon Hooker and Tyrod Taylor and and a Jacoby Brissett and even Lamar Jackson, if you want to say that. I don't really see as much Lamar. He's not as fast as Lamar. But then there's the intangibles. I mean, let's be honest. If there's anybody you believe could really develop the skills he needs to at the next level, I mean, Hendon Hooker is that guy because you just said it. He's really smart. He's got an incredible work ethic, and he's really mentally tough.
Okay, so Hendon Hooker starts 19 and a half games. Now, let me say 24 and a half games in his NFL career, over under.
I believe in his intangibles. I'm going to go over. I'm
I'm going to be the bad guy. I would go under. Well, at least we disagree on something for once this morning. I'll tell you what you need to do is go to giaplantoday.com, giaplantoday.com. Video conferencing is allowed. You to be able to get the best financial advisor services, and that's Guardian Investment Advisors, giaplantoday.com. It's absolutely phenomenal, and they can not only tell you where to put your money, but why. That makes a lot of sense. So Ron Slay coming up next, but again, go to giaplantoday.com. Trust me, your money's important. They'll put it in the right place, and they'll explain to you why. Ron Slay in just about 2 minutes. Hang with me. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
Has risen to the highest level in over 40 years, according to the April 2022 U.S. Inflation Calculator. Will your investments provide you the income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings due to inflation? Simply stated, if the cost of goods and services are 8% higher and you're only earning 4% in your investments, that money buys you less of what you need. Right now is the time to act. Call Guardian Investment Advisors today.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant.
It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Nest Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus the complete line of Green Mountain Grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at ccti's.com.
Welcome back. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, off and rolling as Ron Slay set to join us very shortly. Let's finish up that conversation. So, as far as who you would draft in the NFL, we both agree that Darnell Wright would be number one. And then I went Byron Young. Where did you officially go? Oh, you went Trayvon Flowers. Then after that,
No, I'm going to go Trayvon Flowers third. I try to be on my guard. I'm going to go Cedric Tillman number 2. And so maybe we talked about Trayvon Flowers number 3. And after Trayvon Flowers, I would probably go. Now we're talking character versus potential, because potential, it's Jeremy Banks. But when you throw in character and intangibles, Byron Young is 4th for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Potential,
obviously,
it's Jeremy.
If you want to factor in intangibles, that's something that I think can affect a lot of these Tennessee players in a good or bad way. I mean, Hendon Hooker's as good of intangibles as you got. Ron Slay joins us now. He's with 104.5 The Zone. He's always throwing heat. Ron, I'm trying to pull off the beard like you. It's white, and it's just not working. So I think today's D-Day. I think it's gone today.
Yeah, sometimes, Hook, you just gotta let it go, man. Just let it go. It ain't worth it.
No, I don't think it's happening. It looks like I just am not taking care of myself. So Ron, we were talking about who you would draft in this Tennessee football class, and we both agree Darnell Wright. I'd be curious to get your opinion, but also we talked about intangibles. Hooker's a great young man. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Mm-hmm. Banks, we got a little bit of a question there. Do pros care about intangibles? You've been in the pros. Do you really care that much, or is it what can you do for me now?
Yeah, I think more so when you get to the pros, it's great to be able to have intangibles if you can do something really, really, really well. I think that's what leads to guys having the intangibles and being able to stick around. But you got to be able to do one thing great. If you can key in on that, that's what they need you for, because they're always putting together guys. And, you look at from basketball to football, all pro sports, when you get involved in doing the intangibles, those are guys that have been able to get 5-6 years into the league and then, kind of add to their game. Or if you come in as that wild card intangible guy, you don't see them last long. You get a couple jet sweeps and things like that where you can make gimmick plays out of them, but they can't last because they can't do one thing really, really good. You look at receivers, if they can line up and beat a guy, then that's different than having to bring them. Or unless they have like skill like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has fast. He's just speed. You know what I'm saying? So you can't never coach that. You just got to put that on the field somewhere. But you don't get guys like that with speed coming along that often. So you got to take that and then add to his intangibles. But I'm a guy, man, you got to have one thing that you do great, and that's what's going to keep you in.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this, and I think we can have some fun with this. And it's who will be the standout for Tennessee in the Orange Bowl, or as I call them, the Luka of the Orange Bowl after what he did last night. Good gracious.
Yeah, I don't know what got into Luka. I don't know if it's the statue they put out there, dirt, you know what I mean, the European thing. Like, I can have my own statue, giving them some motivation or something, but goodness gracious, that was crazy.
Well, let me play the element because I want to show off my value. How about that? Here we go. Today's tough question: who will be the Luka of the Orange Bowl?
We do our research. Have you done your research? We're working like heck.
Today's tough question: what's the real debate?
You sipping my Soupe Guadalupe?
Exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker and Amanda LaFratta.
You drinking my sake, Kimosabi?
Oh my God.
So after the game last night, best quote ever, Luka Doncic said, quote, "I'm tired as hell." Well, I don't blame you because he scored a career-high 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. What a performance. What Vol is most likely to be the Luka of the Orange Bowl? I ask you that, Ron Slay, former Vol and just awesome radio show host.
Man, that's kind of a loaded question, and it could go hand in hand with Joe Milton and Brew McCoy.
Okay.
And I think Brew could have that effect if given the opportunity, but you got to hit him. You got to hit him with the ball if you're Joe Milton. And by the production of Brew McCoy, that'll allow Joe Milton to have astounding numbers. You know what I'm saying? But outside of them two, you just talking about individuals where it could be based on them. I have to go defense. And I'm an Aaron Beasley guy, man. Him, him and Wesley Walker. I think that star position is key for what they want to do at the University of Tennessee. And I think Beasley, even though he won't have his running mate, and I think he plays well with Banks, I think Beasley, man, is a guy that can take that next step. You know what I'm saying? I heard y'all earlier talking about Byron Young and guys like that. Tyler Barron has all the measurables to be able to do that, but so many questions about his motor and things of that nature, it kind of makes you back away from him a little bit. But Aaron Beasley, that's going to be my guy, man.
See, I like what you said, I'm with you on Beasley, too. I love the way that guy works. I like what you said on Brew as well. We've talked so much about Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman not being there. We've kind of left out the fact that Brew McCoy, I've talked to college scouts. Or NFL scouts, excuse me. He is the most well-rounded of the three of those receivers as far as a skill set. So I could definitely see him having a big game in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah, he's electric, man. You know what I mean? Like, in this type of offense where the ball is going to be in the air, you got to love a guy like Brew who attacks the ball. Like, very seldom do you see him, even when he runs a little hitch or something, does he let the ball come to him. He goes and attacks the ball. When he gets the ball in his hand, he never lets tacklers get to him. He goes and attacks the tackler. You know, like and if he's running at an angle and somebody got an angle at him, he doesn't keep running to let them create the angle. He goes into the angle. You know what I'm saying? So Brew is a guy, man, I love. Kind of put you in the mindset of a guy like Anquan Bolden. You take the top speed off a guy like DK Metcalf. That's who Brew kind of reminds me of, man. Like, man, he's dangerous. Like, he plays violently, you know, and you don't really get to see that a lot of times, especially in college at the receiver spot. You kind of see people evolve into that once they get to the league. Look at guys like A.J. Brown. He was able to do that once he got to the league, really just start being aggressive and intense coming out of his breaks. Brew does that already. Like, there's a lot of times I think it could have been called on him pass interference because of the way that he gets separation from his guy in those little short bursts. Also, you look at when they were throwing screens and things of that nature, who was out there blocking?
Yeah.
It was always Brew out there attacking guys. So he's a guy, man, that can do a whole lot. I expect to see a lot of him next year. The whole thing is, can they get him the ball? That's the thing. Like, the over-the-head passes and passes in the dirt, like, got to put the ball in his hands, man. He's going to make something special happen.
Ron, you really had to hurt my gut by saying AJ Brown, because I'm a hardcore fan, and I was saying last year that he was our most valuable player before Derrick Henry got hurt, and it ended up being proven. I think we let him walk this year. Sorry, that's going to make my blood pressure boil.
Hey, man, and who you tell? Like, listen, I'm dealing with it day in and day out, man, Caleb. So I totally understand. It's just, man, you think of somebody with that build, Brew. You look at Brew's build, man. I don't see many college guys out there with that type of build on them. Like, dudes, he different. You know what I'm saying?
No, by the way, I want to remind everybody that Ron Slay's appearance brought to you by Zach England, a personal injury attorney that can stand up toe-to-toe with the best attorneys that the insurance companies are going to try to throw out there. He'll win. He'll beat them. Probably won't even have to go to court. Get what you deserve. A personal injury attorney. Zach's got your back. Zach England of Best and Brock. That's Zach England of Best and Brock. Let's turn to hoops as the conference schedule begins. 5 o'clock today. Weird start time. Why do they do that to me, Rob?
Man, because the holidays, they know ain't nobody in school. They got these kids, man. They like, man, let's get them away from campus, or let's get the games done early so they can play as many games in the day and broadcast them as they can. So That's the problem, man. This game's supposed to be at 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock type game.
Agreed. Give me 2 or 3 things that Tennessee got accomplished before SEC conference play begins this afternoon. Give me 2 or 3 things that they got accomplished that they needed to heading into conference play, and then Caleb jump in there.
One, I think they finally found some confidence in Olivier. Put confidence in him. Even though they lost that Arizona game, I think he was a guy that played really well going into that game. And then you see the game, the last game they played before the break, he played very well, leading them with 20 points in that game. I think that's something you got to have, being able to have that guy. Like, this is where I thought he would be at the beginning of the season, having to sit out of the NCAA tournament, a little bit of the SEC tournament, and have that fire lit. I thought he'd come in here like gangbusters, and you finally starting to see a little bit of that going into the SEC season. So Olivier, you got to see Zakai kind of get under control a little bit, try to settle down in his role as far as being a leader, and not just a vocal leader or we're leading on defense, but a calming force at times. You saw a lot of times when the Vols were getting the Titans. When the Vols were getting the Caleb, I blame you. When the Vols would get an offensive rebound and they would kick it back out, instead of taking a 3 with under about 4 or 5 minutes left in the second half, he would pull it back out, tell everybody calm down, not necessarily look at Coach Barnes and try to get everybody in the set to move, get some movement and run some clock and get an easy bucket. So him finding his lanes, where to get his little buckets, you saw that in the Arizona game too. I thought there was even in that loss, man, there was a lot of bright spots. The third thing is finding someone outside of Vescovi to be able to knock down shots. And I think that's the key thing. You see an array of guys being able to do it, whether it's Adu coming in, knocking down the trailer 3, Tyreek Key starting to get more comfortable and a little bit more aggressive. Zakai, of course, knocking down shots. But Meshack, I think Meshack is a big bright spot going into SEC play that you're going to be able to count on. His confidence has really grown. You can see the work he put in the offseason, leading into the season, the play that he's gotten, the opportunity he's gotten with this play. He's been able to progress throughout the season, and it's real good to see. And that's, not counting out guys like Julian Phillips. They are who they are. I expect him to come along as he is and, have outbursts here and there, like 2 or 3 game stretches where he takes over in the SEC, then have a 2 or 3 game stretch where he has to figure it out. It's different when that film gets out in the SEC. So those are 3 things, man. Those are 3 keys as far as people that I think you rely on going to the SEC play.
Ron, I feel like in this game against Ole Miss, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I feel like this is a game where you really need the bigs to step up, because Kermit Davis runs that matchup zone that is just so, it's so difficult to get around, and I think there's going to be a lot of chances for offensive rebounds in this one.
Yeah, and then you want to use your length, period. Make sure. I think the key thing with playing a Kermit team, Coach Davis, you got to have defensive balance. You got to be sure that when that shot is taken, 2 of your guards are back, because they want to run. They want to get that ball and get out and run and use that to their advantage. But while trying to do that, they don't do a great job of boxing out. You know what I'm saying? They got a lot of guards out there on the floor. A couple of them are physical enough to put a body on somebody, but they don't have the bigs to go with us. We got 4 guys that can rotate in, and everybody go eat the boards, especially when Olivier gets aggressive and starts going offensive boards. Like, it's a difference, man. So they got to be able to use that. You got to be able to use Euros. You got to be able to use guys, even if you don't get the ball, make somebody have to put 2 bodies on you to box out, which will free somebody else up to get to the board and come up with it and take good shots. I think that's going to be key, going on the road, taking quality shots, especially early, to take them out of it. Don't give them confidence, and understand you can play the way you want to play. And I don't see nothing wrong with feeding the ball inside. I know with us, Tennessee, we like to shoot the 3. We like to get guys cutting and things of that nature. Not really a team that really goes to the block when it's a size advantage for us. We do better when we're playing same size guys, like 7-footers on 7-footers, or 6'9" on 6'9", things of that nature. I like to see us take advantage of getting guys on the block, but that comes with guys being aggressive in the post, being able to trust that the guards are going to get it to them, and then taking time to do a move.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. Now here's a real question. This is the serious question of the day. It's Ole Miss. We know what happened at Ole Miss in 2019. We know what happened in Knoxville in 2021. Yes or no? Will there be trash thrown onto the court tonight?
I think. Listen, man. Hey, I think you got a good chance of it not being, because it's the first regular season game. Students aren't there. Won't be. It shouldn't be a packed house. So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, to keep in play with everything. If I was a fan, I would go there and just throw a bottle and leave. You know what I mean? Just to make sure we keep the tradition alive. Yeah, we got to keep the tradition alive, man. This is what it is. We throw things out here. So, and every fan base does it in the SEC, just to let the people know.
Yeah. That's as long as Lane Kiffin's there, that's like, I think, Tennessee's sixth rival. Would that be right? You got Alabama, just in general, you got Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, and all these different sports. But as long as Lane Kiffin's there, it's like Tennessee's 6th, 7th, or 8th rivals. Tennessee has more rivals.
Yes, they do.
Than any school in the country.
Yes, they do. Because everybody, first of all, everybody wants to spank us. You know what I mean? Get us when we down. But the problem with Lane Kiffin, they're more like a back alley rivalry. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those on the weekend when you're cleaning up the house, you got to go back there. Hey, man, take this trash out. When you take the trash out, he's that alley cat that's back there torturing and knocking over trash cans. You trying to get a broom to knock him out the way. Like, he just really a pest. Like, he don't really cause no havoc. He just all I got to do is take the trash can on the inside of the fence. Everything will be fine. But I leave it outside just for him so I can see him with the broom and smack him. Every opportunity I get to smack him. Anytime you see he's an alley cat. That's what he is. He's like an alley cat, a pestering alley cat. That's what Lane Kiffin is.
Nice. Now, you know as well as I do that Tennessee wants to control the pace, and that's what they're going to try to do. I would think the rest of the year. As far as the pace of play, what do you make of it right now? Would you like it to be a little bit more up tempo, or are you good with it, or that's just where we are?
Yeah, I would love for it to be more up tempo if the guys are going to be aggressive when it is up tempo. You're not just running just to run. Like, when you get the ball up, you got to play. You got to play with freedom. If you are a shooter and you get the ball on the wing, it's a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2. Take the 3, Tyreek Key. Like, shoot the ball. Let them go get it off the rim. Don't be so gun-ho about having to create the advantage to get the big guy a little closer. You're a shooter. That's what we need you to do, is shoot. Vescovi, he has no problem doing it. Zakai has no problem doing it. When Josiah comes back, he makes good decisions. So it's just about getting the guys like Meshack, Phillips, Tyreek Key, getting all these guys to understand exactly what you're supposed to be doing and where are you going when you're running. If the ball is pushed ahead and you're a big, like, plant in the paint. You saw it late in these last 2 games. Get some position in the paint, man, to make people understand that you got to suck this defense in. And once they are, you're going to create a skip pass where guys that are running the lane be able to knock it down. So you got to run with freedom, man, and be able to go and score. Don't just be running just to run like we in practice going dummy offense where we're 5-on-0. We're trying to work the ball around, swing. And you're running to score, to put pressure on the defense. And if you understand that, then I think it's fine. But if not, then we're going to play like the University of Virginia and just keep on going all the way down in the shot clock. And like, that's a boring style of play, man. And you got too many guys on that team. You ought to have 7 to 8 guys playing every game, maybe even 9, where you can get up and down and you can increase pressure and the pace of play on both ends of the floor.
So you think that, and by the way, Ron's appearance, again, brought to you by Zach England, personal injury attorney in Chattanooga, best of Brock. So you think that Rick Barnes will give them a little bit more rope, a little bit more room to get up and down if they prove they can do it efficiently?
Yeah, just don't do dumb stuff. Like don't get the ball and go into a one-on-one and trying to break the guy down and you ain't got nothing, and then you just start doing your own thing. Like, do what we do, which is we want to score. We want to get the ball inside. If you got an advantage inside, score it. Don't get the ball, get to looking around and trying to figure out, man, go score. Like that's the thing I think where people get a misconception of Coach Barnes, I think, is that he's a stickler, is you do it this way and there ain't no other way. No, man, he wants you to play free. You know what I mean? Do what you can do. If you don't get in here in the game and start doing stuff that we ain't seen you do in practice. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to see you going between the legs with a pull-up jump at the elbow if we've never seen you do that. Anybody, I don't care who it is, like play your game. And that's the thing. I think what gets people thrown off and makes them slow the pace down is you get in there, you get excited, and you start doing things that you shouldn't be doing. Like we don't necessarily want to see Jemai Mashack pulling up for three in transition, but if he's going to the hole, that's totally different, man. Take off, dunk on somebody, or pull up a little short 12-footer off the glass and knock that down. Or if you're running the lane and the ball's reversed, then shoot that three. Like, know who you are, man, and play within your style of play, man. And I think everything will be fine. It's just when guys start doing silly things and they start to compound, somebody take a bad shot, then somebody else take a bad shot, then you get a turnover. And then before you know it, you done gave a 6-0 run to the opponent, then you can't do that, man.
Ron, it's interesting. How much has, it's funny because you're right. We talk about Rick Barnes and people think he's a stickler and he seems old school now. But, the concept of if there's a 3-on-1 and you're Tyreek Key, you take the three at the top of the key, or that was a foreign concept 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And I mean, I remember your junior year was the year Maryland won the national championship with Gary Williams, who was a Rick Barnes.
I got Steve Blake, baby.
Yes, that's right. And it seems like that was that right around that time when it started to transition, where to understand where they really changed how you should run a break.
Yeah. I think it. See, that's when a little bit of the European game started to trickle down into the American game. As far as if you're getting on a 3-on-2 break, you would always have a guy running that's a shooter to keep the floor spaced, where one of the defenders would have to be accountable with him, which you would create a 2-on-1 with the guy running the lane and the ball handler. So that right there was, you had a guy like Juan Dixon being able to pull up mid-range or three-point line, and you had, imagine the guys that they had going to hit the boards. You had Lonnie Baxter, Chris Wilcox. They run it down there like wow men to come in there and get the rebound, whether it's trailing or whatever. So that's what you would start to create. And overseas, man, we would actually run breaks. And I never knew this until I got over there. I was like, this is weird, but it made sense in the scheme of things. We would run breaks to make a shooter run to the corner at the three-point line at the corner to make somebody go out there. If you don't go out there and defend them, then you kick it out to him while that guy's closing out. You got 2-on-1 under the rim for a rebound. And the odds of you getting that rebound are likely. But whoever that shooter is got to shoot as soon as you get the ball, or you're going to put us at a disadvantage because everybody else is coming back, trailing the play to kind of get in play. And then, a corner shot, rebound bounces off, and then you off to the races. So you got to hurry up and get that shot up. So that's the thing. You have to bust your butt, get to the corner. And you saw the NBA start to get that with D'Antoni. That's why you always saw guys running to the corners of the threes. Steve Nash always being able to drag and pick and roll. They really were essentially playing 4-on-4. You know what I mean? The out-of-bounds guy really didn't even count in the offense. He was really the safety. So you start to see that more trickle down into the game, like you said, my junior year. And now that's where it is. That's where it is. It's common. Like Vescovy, I don't even really want him going in. Like I would love for him to take that three. And I know, man, it's 40%, 45%. But boy, imagine when one of them guys get hot and you get 2 or 3 fast breaks like that, man. It can be deafening into if you're at home, you can take a team right out of it. And if you're on the road, it's a great equalizer. So you'd love to see that.
Who's the best player you ever played in Europe? I mean, would we know him?
Oh, yeah, it's quite a bit. I got a chance to get against Gallinari when he was 17. He was like the he was the next one. He was the product. He was the protege of Europe. Him, Kristaps Porzingis. I got him a year before he was supposed to come out that year. They nobody knows, but the Mavericks, they really got a farm league team in Spain, in Seville, Spain, and he was with them the whole time. Like, they got an NBA staff on their bench. And we was playing them. I'm looking at these dudes like, man, I haven't seen these guys before on the bench. The coaches, all them old school guys that played in the league, just over there grooming kids. You know what I'm saying? So he's one. It was quite a bit, man. I'm trying to think. It was a lot of guys, man, that I was able to catch. I can't think of them straight off the dome, but it was quite a few guys that were getting busy over there.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be a billionaire and just start a farm league team in Spain, because then you have to take business trips over there and just make sure everything's going good.
Hey, man, it was wild, dog. Like, and they doing a good job of getting them together too, because they're adapted to the way we talk. You know what I'm saying? The trash talk we do on the court, like, none of that really bothers them. You know what I'm saying? Because they hear it all the time in practice since they 15, 16 years old. By the time they 19, Porzingis, I was elbowing him, talking trash. He was just ignoring me. You know what I mean? And he understood everything I was saying. So,
Ron, be careful. You could have broken a rib. Did you want to hand him? Did you want to hand him a sandwich after the game was over? That's the skinniest dude I've ever seen.
Hey, man, but guess what, Hook? He's so long. Like,
yeah,
man, I remember it was a play before the half. I was boxing out. I think we were up 1, and they were shooting the second of 2 free throws. I'm boxing him out next to me on my left side, and the ball goes up, and I know I got him boxed. And I mean, I'm going into him, big body. I'm about 255 at this time. Body, boom, banging him. Man, this man reached over me with all that banging, just reached over me, got the ball, tipped it back in. They went up 1 at the half. I'm like, hey, man, that ain't nothing. And like 7'2" is 7'2". I don't care how much bodying you do or anything, man. He seemed skinny, but he had his body down low, waist below, like he had a sturdy foundation on him. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to explain, man, because he is skinny as hell. It's just 7'2". Any way you want to cut it, it don't matter.
I think Caleb can correct me on this, but I think the line's 8, Tennessee by 8. Is that right, Caleb? So, what do you think, Ron, for entertainment purposes only? What do you see out there?
I think they cover. I think they only give up probably about 51, 52 points to Ole Miss. I'll be shocked if I wouldn't be shocked if Morrell was able to get off against Tennessee early. I think that could put that in harm's way. But if they hold him in check, and he's a guy really just letting it fly from everywhere, you just hold him in check, everybody else kind of falls in. You know, that's the only guy. I think maybe one more guy scoring in double figures for them. But they play 10 guys, and I'm interested to see if that shrinks down going into SEC play. But yeah, I think Tennessee, they just go out there and play their game, focus in on defense, regardless if they're hitting shots. Like we said, they should be able to get to the foul line and hit the offensive boards to kind of keep this game in hand, and I think they definitely cover.
All right, buddy. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. Have a great New Year, and we will talk to you soon.
Most definitely. Appreciate it, y'all.
Thanks, Ron.
No doubt.
104.5 The Zone does a fantastic job if you're there in afternoons. He's great to listen to. And look at me. I can see. That's right. Without contacts, without glasses. And that's thanks to my friends at Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, the vision center that's right there in Knoxville that cares about Knoxvillians. You don't see that a lot. They are local. So that's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. They did my LASIK. Also keep that name in mind if you have somebody that needs to undergo cataract surgery. So stay tuned. Back in 2 minutes, the latest on Tennessee football recruiting. We're talking Cruton after this, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Calhoun Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Vols Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Ray, and I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ottawa. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do, and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
There we go. Welcome back. He's Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. It is time for This Day in Sports History. This Day in Sports History is brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Don't make a mistake that's going to cost you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Andy Mason in beautiful Knoxville knows the market, and he has 2 business principles. Remember this, 1, 2. Number 1, best service. Number 2, best prices. Can't beat that. It's time for This Day in Tennessee sports history.
History, putting things in perspective, exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
You're so old. When you were a kid, rainbows were black and white.
And Amanda LaFratta.
2 kids on the block just called. They wanted you as a backup dancer.
Let's go back just a little bit since we have been off for the holidays, and I hope you had a fantastic holiday season. Merry Christmas to you all. It was December the 26th in 2004 that Reggie White passed away at the age of 43. Still stunning. It was a sleep apnea thing, and Reggie White was at a very interesting crossroad in his life as he was had begun studying Judaism to a large degree, and some had criticized him for that. And his contention was he just wanted to know as much about religion as he could. But you talk about a guy that, if I made a list of 10 guys in Tennessee sports history that I could sit down and spend an hour with and interview, he'd be on the top 10 and pretty high on that list.
Yeah, he is one of the cases where, and I don't believe this, but man, if you do believe that like God has an impact on football games based on faith, I mean, as a matter of fact, isn't there a story where some dude talked trash to him in the NFL and he said, "You're going to feel the wrath of God," and then the next play he got a sack?
I don't remember that one. I do remember he prayed over, and listen, I mean, whether or not you're a believer, that's fine out there, but you can take this for what it's worth. An ACL injury can be a partial tear, can be a complete tear, it can be a lot of different things. But I do remember there being some sort of ACL injury in which he said, "I will be back the next week," and everybody said, "No, there's no way nobody comes back from this." And he prayed on it, and he was back the next week. So I don't remember your story, but I do remember another story that ties into religion where he was back like almost immediately, and everybody said he was out for the remainder of the year. So yeah, it never hurts to have faith, and he had a lot of it. And Reggie Watt was also very active when there were some church burnings of African American churches in the Knoxville area, and he did a lot. And I think a lot of people got mad at him for speaking out, which is unfortunate because if there was a chain of African American churches that were being burned, and it appeared as if there was back at the time. I don't know if you remember this, Caleb. You may be too young, but him stepping up and saying something carried a lot of weight. So he passed away December the 26th, 2004. We go back a couple of days. Then a couple of basketball notes on December the 27th. The Tennessee basketball team beat Manhattan College 76-70 in the only meeting between the two teams. And then the Vols lost to Holy Cross 68-67. So thank you, Brittany, because she did her homework on that one, because that was that was in 19. I'm sorry. The first Manhattan College was in 71, and then the loss to Holy Cross was in 1960. So Brittany's gone back and done her homework.
Those seems like games Buzz Peterson would have lost.
Or Kevin O'Neill, if you.
That's true.
Well, that's a little high scoring for Kevin O'Neill. Kevin O'Neill was in the 50s.
No one has ever stumbled up a coaching ladder like Kevin O'Neill with like career of mediocrity on when you look at results on the court like him.
Well, and the other one that stumbled up the ladder of mediocrity, and I do love that term, by the way, was one of his assistants who ended up being the head coach of the Nets.
Really?
He was a redheaded fella. We don't use the word ginger on here, but he was a redheaded fella, and I don't care if you use ginger or not. But yeah, he stumbled up on there. Maybe you could do a little bit of research and find out who that was. But he ended up, it was just like out of left field. I saw he was named as a head coach of, I believe it was the Nets, but check me on that for sure. And but yeah, I guess you can do that in basketball from time to time. It seems a lot more difficult in football. If you're anywhere in the Chattanooga area and you're thinking about mortgage, you need to go to. It's very simple, because I'm gonna spell it out for you right here. It is chatmortgage.com, CHATT mortgage.com, and they will take care of you. And they worked with me to clean up my credit score, so I qualified for what I needed, and they're just fantastic. Chatmortgage.com, CHATT mortgage.com. Go to that website, fill out the necessary contact info, and they'll be in touch with you. So did you find out who that was by chance?
I did not. I know that he and Rick Carlisle were were united at times, but I didn't find out any assistant who coached for the Nets. New Jersey Nets have had a lot, or the Brooklyn Nets, I guess now, have had a lot of basketball coaches over the years. Yeah, Calipari. They had John Calipari before he went to Memphis in 97 and 98, I think.
They did, and I interviewed John Calipari. Ray says, go Vols. Hey, Ray. I interviewed John Calipari very shortly after the Nets thing, and he just did not care at all. He was the coach of Memphis, and he said they decided they didn't like me, so they wrote me a $4 million check, and I walked away, and that's that.
That sounds like Calipari. He
was an easy business transition for him. No big deal. I'm moving on. I got this taken care of.
Man, how great was basketball in the state of Tennessee when you had Bruce Pearl and John Calipari together?
Pretty wildly insane, as a matter of fact. And so who did you determine would be the Luka? By the way, Luka Doncic, I just love saying his name, for the Dallas Mavericks went for 60 points, 20 rebounds, and 11 assists. So who will be the Luka Doncic for the Vols in the Orange Bowl?
So I get Ron with Brew as the wideout because I see that potential. I think Milton overthrows things so badly, though. You need a guy with speed to catch those balls. And so I'm going Squirrel White. I'm telling you, 200 yards receiving from Squirrel White. Watch.
Good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
All right. So
has Luka made it onto, like, if we were to do, this is horrible, but I'm going to do it. If you were to do an all-time White starting five in NBA, is Luka already on that list? Like, you got Larry, like Jokic is, and Larry Bird is, and Dirk is.
Yeah, Bird, Dirk, Kevin McHale.
I can't start Kevin McHale.
It depends which area you're playing. If you're playing, because if you can still start with your back, if you can still score with your back to the basket, he was the best back to the basketball player of all time. In my opinion.
But are you putting him in over Dirk or Jokic? Jokic just won back-to-back MVPs.
Gosh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
NBA live discussion that my son and I may have tonight. I don't know. But it's funny, after that 5, I can't come up with anybody else.
I mean, there's at the guard spots you got Nash and Stockton, and I don't know which one you start at point guard between the two. And I know, guys, I'm hating on all the players from the 60s and the 50s. Apologies to Havlicek, George Mikan, Bob Pettit, Bill Walton in the 70s. Apologies to all those guys, but
Joe says, I'll go with Jalen Wright or one of the running backs. That's so funny, Joe. I was going to say Jalen Wright earlier this morning, and I flip-flopped a little bit. I could see Jalen Wright having a big game. It feels like to me that Jalen Wright is the future of the running back program. Not to take anything, the running back position, not to take anything away from Jabari Small, but it feels like they like him a little bit more. He couldn't squeeze the rock early in the season. He had fumble issues in preseason, and he had another one later in the year. But it just feels like if he could take care of that, they might like him a little bit more. Am I wrong on that?
I think Wright's a bigger playmaker. There are still things Small can do that Wright can't do. You can line up Jabari Small on 3rd and 1 and get a first down, and you're going to get the first down with him. He's not as sure of a bet as Travis Henry was. I'm not saying he's like that type of running back, but I think you can still trust Small to do it. I don't think Heupel's system is like, and we've watched it for 2 years now, and he really relies heavily on the run game. And I think we've talked about it. It's like that's where it's so different from Mike Leach's offense. That is where it's a good comparison to Steve Spurrier, who was known for throwing it all over the field. Spurrier loved to run the ball when he could.
Yeah.
And I think Heupel does love to run the ball, but what you don't really see is you don't see that 200-yard game by a running back with Heupel. Because even if he's committed to the run, he's committed to it insofar as the big plays still come in the passing game.
Right. I mean, it's to keep you even. I mean, it's
right.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, they're not lining up in the I formation and pounding it in the A gap. I mean, that's not something they're going to do. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button and like. We greatly appreciate that. And then the guy that you need to watch that I'm afraid is not going to go Tennessee's way for those that want a transfer portal quarterback is Sam Hartman. So I got a little tip yesterday that he was about to bolt Wake Forest. Also got a tip from this person because he thinks that of all the people in the transfer portal, that this guy is the absolute best fit for Tennessee. So Tennessee's not going to take a guy just to take a guy. He thinks this guy's release, his deep ball ability and everything. Now, I say all that. He's a great fit, and that sounds great. But here's the thing to remember. He is likely, I'm told, headed to Notre Dame. Okay? So I'm not certain that he's going to end up at Tennessee. As a matter of fact, if I had a bet against it, I would have to bet against it. If I had a bet either way, I'd say he ends up at Notre Dame. But if I'm Tennessee, I'm wowing Sam Hartman with everything I can because I think he's a great fit for this offense. What do you make of Sam Hartman popping when he did, and Tennessee's ability to maybe swoop in there and get him? I will just go ahead and tell you, when I heard the announcement that Marcus Freeman was going to be the head coach at Notre Dame, and the players erupted in excitement, and you elevated a coach from a lower level, I don't want to overstate this, but that signaled in some ways the irrelevance of Notre Dame football without Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's a great coach, okay? He won more games at Notre Dame than anybody else. He had success there. He kept Notre Dame relevant. They'll always be relevant, but how relevant? That's the question mark. So they have, for those that don't know, the two things that coaches want control of. They want control of discipline and they want control of admittance. You have zero control there at Notre Dame. So you don't go out and get a great coach just because you're Notre Dame. Forget about those days. That's why Lou Holtz left. That's why Brian Kelly eventually left. So when they elevated Freeman and the players erupted, that was a big uh-oh for me in the back of my head. Because I'm thinking there's a players coach. And sure enough, whatever you think about Notre Dame, I think they underachieved this year. I think you're going to see a slow decline. So if Tennessee's able to turn him, let's assume they want him, it's going to be because they need to sell him that Tennessee's on the way up and Notre Dame's probably not. Can they do that, Caleb? I don't know.
I think they could. I also think if what you say is true, which is that he's got a great deep ball, then he would be scary in Tennessee's system. Because one thing I would say with Sam Hartman is this past year, he was completing 63% of his passes, averaging about 8.5 yards, a little over that an attempt. You know this. We covered him, or you covered him the 1 year he was at Tennessee, and it was a disaster. But it was a disaster because there were just dynamics between Dave Clawson and Phil Fulmer that didn't work. But Clawson runs a spread that's more of a West Coast offense, isn't it? Where it's a lot of short passes and depends on accuracy over the middle and in the out routes. And if Sam Hartman can play in that, and he's got a pretty deep ball, then good Lord, there's no weaknesses in his game if he comes to Tennessee. And I mean, you could talk about, you give Heupel even more options than he had with that. I'm sorry, that's just a scary thing to think about on how good he could be.
No, I agree. I think that Tennessee should go all out for him. I think they should do everything they possibly can to get him, short of flying Josh Heupel from bowl practice to wherever he lives. Just short of that, I think they should do everything they can. I think he would be a natural fit. It would actually probably adjust my opinion of Tennessee's upcoming season by a game or a game and a half. Wherever you have them, if you have them at 8, I would bump them up to 9. If you have them at 7, I'd bump them up to 8. I think he would be that big of an impact player. Lots of recruiting going on, as we had National Signing Day last week, but there's a lot more going on as the transfer portal and more. So we mentioned Hartman. Let's go to Talking Cruton right now, brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Talking Cruton.
Am I right or am I right or am I right?
Who's on Tennessee's board? The names you need to know exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
That may have been a little loud, Caleb. Sorry if I scared you on that. All right, so Tennessee has made the top 5 according to our own Caleb Jarreau. He has made the top 5 of another round of 2024 prospects. Boo Carter, not a surprise in the Chattanooga area, has Tennessee in the top 5, along with Colorado, Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan. I feel like Boo Carter is Tennessee's to lose. I think there are some issues there that I would be somewhat concerned with, and that is he left his team when he was injured midway through the playoffs. That was a little strange. Athlete Jacob Oden includes Tennessee as the only SEC school in his top 5. He has Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Iowa. I'm going to go back through these and break them down. He is a safety. These are 4-star prospects or better. Linebacker Jeremiah Beasley. Beasley announced his top 5 on Tuesday, including Tennessee among Kentucky, Pitt, Michigan, and Michigan State. I think you see the net is being cast pretty wide. So what are your thoughts on Boo Carter, a guy that could play a number of positions? When I watch him on tape, he looks like a corner to me. And usually the guys listed as athletes are. But what do you make of Boo Carter? He did leave his team at one point during the playoffs. He was injured. That was a little bit surprising, I thought. But what do you make of Boo Carter? Because he's definitely been in the news. And for whatever reason, some of these prospects tend to be fan favorites, and he's certainly been one of those.
Yeah, I think he's the only realistic player on the list yesterday that Tennessee has a shot with to start with, because I think Jacob Oden and Jeremiah Beasley both have Michigan schools in their top 5. They're both from the Detroit area. They're from Wayne County, right outside of Detroit. Doesn't look like they want to leave Michigan, if I'm being honest. So I think Boo Carter is Tennessee's only realistic shot. It's funny you said corner. On 3 lists him as a safety when he's an athlete everywhere else. And there were rumors that if he goes to Ohio State, he could play running back. And I thought about that last night, funny enough, because I'm thinking if he could play, he does have kind of the build for a running back in Josh Heupel's system for kind of that explosive all-purpose back. But I think that if he went to Tennessee, he'd be a defensive back, full-stop defensive back. And you say corner, I'm probably saying safety. But if he does play safety, he probably needs to put on 10, 20 pounds.
Let's look at Sam Hartman for a second because we had a question from Patricia about that. Sam Hartman enters the transfer portal. By all indications, you think he's going to end up at Notre Dame. He's a 6-year grad transfer, so he thought about entering the draft actually. So he'll only have 1 year of eligibility left. So Patricia asked, if Hartman comes, how does that affect Milton and Nico? Well, I think it doesn't affect Milton very well at all. It tells Milton, it tells the entire team that they don't have faith that Joe Milton can get the job done in 2023, and it probably and they would probably lean towards Hartman unless Milton just really, really was a lot better in spring camp. As far as Nico, I think that's a totally different thing. I think that plays itself out as it does. I think he's more talented than Hartman. Sounds weird to say more talented than Milton because Milton, I know, has all the physical attributes. But when it comes to touch on a football, when it comes to getting the ball out quickly, ability to read defenses, I think he's more mobile in the pocket. I actually think Nico is far more talented. I know that sounds weird. Joe Milton threw the ball 100 yards, threw an orange 100 yards in UT's Twitter feed. I know that sounds weird, but I think Nico is better all around as a quarterback and even athletically. I think that bubbles to the surface whenever it does. I mean, I think that could be in spring. That could be in August. That could be in the middle of the season. That could be in 2024. But I think the Nico thing takes care of itself. When he's able to play, he's going to play, Caleb. As far as the Milton thing, I think Hartman and Milton would come in. I would like Hartman at that point. But maybe Joe Milton surprises me and holds off Hartman. I know if you're going to go after Hartman, there's probably going to be NIL dollars involved. You want him to be a factor. So,
Here's a question for you.
Milton is Milton. I mean, I like the guy. You've said this before too, Caleb. I'm sorry. I like the guy, but I don't think accuracy suddenly fixes itself.
No, I don't. Here's another question, and I don't know if his coach has ever done this, and I want to know if you think Fulmer ever did this or anybody you've covered. Has a coach ever, for lack of a better term, punted a season to say, thinking long term, it's worth? So I say that in this way: you'd have a better chance with Hartman next year than you do with Milton. You're not a national title contender next year, even with Hartman. There's still too many limitations. Do you punt and say, let's stick with Milton because that way Heupel can kind of keep the locker room since everybody likes Joe Milton and you don't want to have a long-term split? And so you can just, ride out next year, whatever it ends up being. And, God willing, it's not 7-5 or worse. You know what I mean? And then you've kept the locker room and then you can go all in after that. Has any coach you covered ever considered, let's punt next season just to think long term?
At the quarterback position, there are times I thought that may be the case. But in retrospect, I don't think it was. I think the better guy played. If you're Josh Heupel and you want to do that, this would be the year to do it because you're coming off a 10-win season. But you better feel darn good about 2024 because let's say you do roll out there and I think with Milton that Tennessee's an 8-win team. The schedule lines up again. It's not that difficult. The non-conference opponents aren't scary. So I think that you're going to win. Tennessee's going to win 8 games. But if you said about punting, are you talking about playing Milton or playing Nico? Let me make sure
I'm saying playing Milton because even if Nico's better, because you want to, I'm saying it's worth it to keep the locker room next year more than it is to win an extra game, 8 or 9 wins. I think if it's the difference between 6 wins and 8 wins, then we could have a conversation because that looks a lot worse. Or if it's the difference between 8 wins and competing for a national title, then obviously you don't do it. But if it's just the difference between like 8 or 9 wins, I wonder if because it's clear the locker room, we've been watching your interviews with Cooper and Jacob. It's clear the locker room loves Joe Milton. Everybody in there loves Joe Milton. And do you really want to risk losing the locker room for over a season where I don't think anybody thinks Tennessee is going to compete for a title next year. They're not going to be the same team they were this year.
Here's the problem. I thought there were a couple of times that Tennessee may have put a quarterback in a little bit earlier than he should have played. I'm trying to think of the Brent Schaefer, Eric Ainge year. That was Rick Clausen was still on that team, right?
Yeah, he hadn't. The real story was they just basically told CJ Leak, "We're done with you."
Yeah. Well, and okay, so I think CJ had a real problem too with a couple of different things. When I look back at that season, I think they kind of punted the season for the future. I know all the players wanted Rick Clausen because they felt like all they had to do is have a guy that would divvy the ball out, and it was that simple. And I think that the coaching staff at the time thought the quarterbacks were pretty close, and here's an opportunity to go out there and prepare for the future. If I were going to punt in any shape, form, or fashion, and again, the players are going to know who the best player is in practice. That's the scary part about it. So if you were to do anything like this, which is very nefarious, by the way, on your part, Caleb, but if you were to do anything like this, I would punt for Nico. I would roll him out there in the opener and say, "Here we go, boys."
But okay, what happens then if Nico you have an off and on year, you go 7 or 8 wins, and then there's a wave of players at the end of next year that are mad that Milton didn't start and then transfer, and whatever, that felt Milton was done wrong and turned against Heupel.
Well, the bottom line is you're going to have success. I mean, that's why you haven't seen a lot of players leave Tennessee this year, is because things are going good. Yeah, again, we're punting based off one huge assumption, and that is Tennessee's going to win as many games as they should, right?
Yes. It's funny. It reminds me of, you were in college at the time. You weren't covering the team, but, I wonder, like 94, everybody knew Peyton Manning and Brandon Stewart were the future, but they, before he got hurt, it seems like the coaches and everybody wanted to go with Jerry Colquitt. Everybody loved him because he had waited his turn,
Yes.
set behind Heath Schuler. And I mean, a part of me doubts he was actually better than Peyton and Brandon Stewart in practice during those times.
Well,
but...
so what you're doing is you're safety punting, so to speak.
Yes.
I'm thinking more of the coffin corner at my own
roll the dice
at my own 20 aggressive punting. So okay, from that perspective, if you wanted a safety punt, I think you could do it really easily by playing Joe Milton the first 4 games and seeing how things shake out. And then the players are like, I'm not so sure about this guy. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. We appreciate it. Then you've got the players on your side. So I could see that playing out in Tennessee's favor. So let's take a look at the schedule really quick. So you and I both think Joe Milton's going to be average to slightly below average. I think I don't want to speak on your behalf, but interrupt me if that's the case. So you've got Virginia in Nashville. You should win that game. You should win Austin Peay. And then let's see what happens at Florida. You're at Florida. That's the ultimate test, even more than the team, Caleb. You're on the road. You're at Florida. How does Joe Milton handle that? And then if you want to punt for, in my case, punt for Nico, you've got UTSA, the University of Texas San Antonio, coming in the next week. You got the Roadrunners that you can get ready for. Then you would have South Carolina. And I don't care what happened this year. That was off the field stuff. Tennessee should beat South Carolina, and it's at home. And then you have an off week. So if you were to ask me the most likely quarterback scenario right now, if I had to lay money on it, and we did some sort of ball board or whatever they call it, I would say that Milton starts the first 3 games. Things don't go well at Florida, and they may make the move to Nico. That's my prediction.
So here's another twist in this.
Dun.
Milton is what, 6'5", 245. Obviously, Milton, for whatever his flaws, still has a threat in the run game. He plays almost like a running back when he runs.
Which is scary in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that the coaches have in their favor where they can open up the offense, well, they can be more creative with Milton in the run game than they could with Hooker, is they may have less incentive to protect Milton, if that makes sense. And I say, you know what? This offense next year, Heupel would never do this. This offense calls for the single wing next year. Bring back the single wing with Milton, where he just takes a snap and runs.
Love it. I'm completely down with that. Go ahead and run the single wing. Power to 9 or 10 wins or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I just when I look at, and you and I both talked about 2023 could be somewhat of a rebuilding year. And when you and I talked about that one day, I went and looked at the schedule. Yes, it could, but with the way the schedule lays out, Tennessee should win 9 games.
They should. I mean, they should, and they definitely could.
Not a bad. I mean, if that's your rebuilding year, 9 games where Tennessee is, that's a pretty darn good season headed into 2024.
It is, but don't forget in 2024, they're not even going to play a Power 5 non-conference team in 2024 because the Oklahoma game was canceled by the SEC. And I doubt they're going to be able to get another one to replace it. So
reminds you of like, I don't know if you ever covered preps when guys are trying to line up games. And they're like, we've got an open week in November. We got to fill it. Who are we going to play? I don't know if you've ever been around high school coaches, but those conversations actually happen. And they're like calling people, trying to line up a game. It reminds me of that. All right, fantastic show. We appreciate you, Caleb Calhoun. If you're just tuning in, excuse me, you can go back on YouTube, listen to the latest on recruiting. You can also hear our thoughts on Sam Hartman, the Wake Forest quarterback who might be taking a look at the Vols, and Ron Slay. You can't beat Ron. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Off the Hook Sports. Have a fantastic day, everyone, and continue to enjoy the holidays. If you're off this week, enjoy it because the new year will be here before you know it. And Orange Bowl coverage on offthehooksports.com. Lex says, great show, guys. We appreciate that, Lex. Hit that thumbs up button if you appreciate it. Tell a friend.